Fourth live stream of the day. Meet Brian Beck. And Brian Beck is my last and final guest today. And I was just telling him right before this, the one that I've been really kind of looking forward to and kind of geeking out over and preparing for. No disrespect to our previous guest today. We've had a lot of really interesting people on in this impromptu live stream marathon that we've been having on. But Brian is someone that I've never spoken with before. He is a name that I have never even heard before. Brian, I think I found you on LinkedIn, and it was probably a podcast or something, and I just really appreciated your tone and style and authority that you speak with, and I really appreciated the topic of e-commerce, specifically B2B e-commerce.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a blind spot for me. But that's my introduction to you, Brian. I could read your whole dry bio if you want, but I'd rather just let you introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, Tucker. And yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And yeah, I think we did connect. I was on a podcast or a blog or something, and you saw. So for the folks in your audience today, just to give you a little bit of who I am, who you're talking to, I've been in the e-commerce field for 2 decades. That just means I'm old. Most of my career, Tucker, I spent on the B2C side of e-commerce. So I ran e-commerce for companies like Harbor Freight Tools and Paxa. And these are consumer companies, right? They're companies that sell tools or apparel. And, did that for about 17 years as the vice president of e-commerce. And then I got into the B2B side of e-commerce because what I saw was, for almost 20 years, we were spending a lot of time developing best practice for selling products to e-commerce, through e-commerce to consumers, through Amazon, through other marketplaces. But B2B e-commerce is enormous, but yet it's still so far behind where consumer e-commerce is. Now, the difference, Tucker, is that consumer e-commerce, you're selling to consumers. In B2B, it's one business buying from another business via e-commerce channels. So it's the same.
I know that much about it, but thank you for clarifying, because don't assume that I know things. So continue to define terms, right?
Sure.
But yeah, the B2C, I mean, that seems, when I think of B2C, I think of resellers. I think of Amazon Marketplace. I think of Shopify. I think of drop shipping. I think of all of this stuff. But when I think of B2B e-commerce, I think of, I don't know. Like, I don't know what that looks like. And that's what I'm realizing.
Yeah. Well, let me define it for you. Mm-hmm. It's, in a lot of ways, it's the same principles of a business and when a consumer buys from a business, but it's the business buyer buying from the business. And so when you think about what does that transaction look like? Well, it's a business buyer coming to an e-commerce website of one of their suppliers and buying for their business through that website. It sounds very similar and simple, as equivalent to B2C e-commerce, but in fact, in some ways it's quite different, because business buyers, if you think about, those of you who are business owners who are listening in today on this session, you have different requirements. You want business pricing. You may have a contract with a supplier, and you need the pricing you buy from through your e-commerce site of that supplier to have pricing that is reflective of that contract. You might have different delivery methods. You're buying in bulk. You may want to buy on a PO or on credit terms. So while Tucker, it's very similar to B2C e-commerce, the effective B2B e-commerce sites are like consumer sites, but they have all this other stuff that accommodates these traditional workflows, or buying in bulk or shipping on my truck. I want to pick it up from the facility, the distribution facility. There's just a lot of differences in how the transaction flows, but ultimately, it's a similar type of experience. If I'm a business buyer, I'm going to use search. I'm going to use navigation on that website to find things that I need, and so it has a lot of similarities too. It's just a business
buyers. And here's what I think a lot of people forget or never learn about B2B is that B2B is you're still selling to people. Right?
Yes.
Like, you may be selling to companies, but the decision makers are individuals. The decision makers are people. So a lot of aspects in like actually, understanding, doing your customer research and developing buyer personas and all of that stuff, that may still apply. I was just more interested in the logistics of it. And you're telling me that it's essentially there's this ecosystem out there built to support B2B e-commerce operations, and that looks very similar for all intents and purposes to the B2C ecosystem that many of us are already familiar with. It's just been kind of upgraded to service businesses unique. I would imagine like integrations with ERP systems and
Yep.
that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Am I understanding correctly?
You are. The fascinating thing is that so you mentioned a couple of important things there, Tucker. Number one, that the B2B e-commerce market is being driven by business buyers who are, of course, consumers in their personal lives. And these folks are all becoming the B2B buyer. The B2B buyer in the past used the phone. They would use a fax machine.
Yeah.
You know what this is?
Yeah.
They use email, right? But those days are numbered. In fact, the latest statistic is that by 2025, 75% of B2B buyers will be millennials. And guess what? Millennials are Amazon natives.
Yeah.
They expect an Amazon-like experience from you, their business supplier. If you're not delivering that, guess what? You're going to lose relevance with those buyers. They're going to go somewhere else. And here's the astounding fact, Tucker. 50% of B2B companies still do not have an e-commerce website. 50%. But check this out. B2B e-commerce is 2.5 times the size of consumer e-commerce, even though 50% of companies don't have an e-commerce site.
So that tells me there's a couple big guys out there with their fingers in the cookie jar, sucking up all of that business because no one's thinking about it. Right?
Well, that's absolutely right. And you've got companies that are investing in B2B e-commerce. One of the biggest is, of course, Amazon. And I have a whole, this is my...
Amazon's like your bread and butter, right?
Yeah,
like,
so I'm going to point out my book here real quick, $1 billion B2B e-commerce. Sorry.
Bam, right? No, we'll do it. Like this is the point. This is why you're here, to talk about the book. So www.billiondollar B2B e-commerce. Well, that is hard. URL.com. And,
yes, I know.
Yeah, you can also available on Amazon as well.
Yes,
so maybe just it's the first search result. Just search for Brian Beck $1 billion B2B e-commerce, and this is Amazon page is the first one that comes up. If you guys are interested.
Yeah.
Sorry to steal your thunder there, Brian, but
no, please.
It's always better to be plugged than to plug. So
that's exactly right.
Wow, so don't dig too deep into that for innuendos. I'm sorry.
That's okay, man.
Where were we?
I was making the point that that in the book I have a whole chapter on Amazon because it's so impactful. In fact, Amazon Business, which is Amazon's B2B arm, does more than $25 billion in B2B sales a year now. It has become the fastest growing part of Amazon. In fact, this company that that is on the wall behind me called Enceiba is a company that I own that does Amazon work for B2B companies, and we help enable these companies on the channel, and so and help them grow their business. So B2B is here, it's real, and there are, to your point, Tucker, some big companies investing in the channel to enable it, and they're taking market share from traditional companies that don't have e-commerce enabled today. So this Amazon native group of buyers is here, and they're buying, and the B2B buyer base is growing at Amazon and by leaps and bounds. So that's an example of one of the dynamics you were just talking about.
Nice, thanks, and thank you, Christopher. Christopher has been with me all day as I've been streaming, which is fascinating because Christopher is in South Africa. So,
wow.
Christopher, I don't know what time it is. Go to bed. But he also has a newborn, or young children, I should say, down there. I was trying to pull that up I was looking for it so I can pull it up for you. But yeah. So Amazon, just talk to me about Amazon. So talk to me about Enceiba. Not because I want the sales pitch and the plug, but because I think, like, if you walk through how you help your clients, then I think that will paint along the way. That's going to paint a picture of some of the complexities to look out for, and specifically with an eye, because Nimdzi's audience is global. Like, we have a lot of folks wanting to.
Yep.
That's why we do cross-market commerce, right? With an eye to that.
Absolutely. So Amazon is So a couple things. I'll take you back a little bit to why we started the business. Amazon in the U.S. is responsible for 49% of e-commerce sales. This year will be more than 50% through COVID. And again, I described to you some of the business to business aspects of what they're doing. So we started this business Enceiba because we saw an opportunity. I've sold on Amazon, Tucker, for 22 years. Every place I've been, whether it's Harbor Freight Tools or PacSun or wherever, we were selling on Amazon. And what we saw is that, it really an opportunity for brands, companies that make products and manufacturers to take control of what was happening for their product on Amazon. And we saw an emergence of the B2B category in Amazon. So industrial products, medical products, office products, things like that businesses buy. So we started the business to help these companies basically build their strategy and then go into the marketplace and sell. And by the way, Tucker, some of those companies are based overseas. Well, not all of our customers are US based. So as we talk about, to your audience, can you use e-commerce and in particular Amazon to enter the US market? Yes, the answer is yes. And you can do it successfully. And there's a couple of advantages Amazon provides. And we can talk about Amazon versus your own e-commerce and those sorts of things.
Yeah, because that's kind of what's the difference? Just using Amazon as kind of a proxy for outsourced or managed, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's a term for it. Versus selling your own product, direct to consumer, direct to business, right? And then, the warehousing and shipping and the complexities that come with that. That's like the main. And my hypothesis, my guess is the answer is if you want to go quick, go through Amazon or something similar. If you want to build something, I don't even know, right?
Let me give you some. This is a question I get all the time, Tucker, as you might imagine, right? So when we think about Amazon versus your own e-com, Amazon is a great place to start your journey if you're new to e-commerce or if you're new to a market. Why is that? Well, the things you do for Amazon prepare you well for your own e-commerce initiative. What are the things you need? Let's set aside the channel, Amazon or your own, for a moment.
Okay.
To be successful in e-commerce, there's a couple things you need. You need to have great product information, really good photos, descriptions, bullet points, pricing, etc. You need to have all this product data ready. You need to understand how to market and merchandise your product well through digital channels, through your own e-commerce or through a marketplace like Amazon. By the way, these things are true for B2B or B2C,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
You need the right people. You need to have people that can manage the program. And you need to build sort of your organizational muscle. And finally, you need to be able to get the product to the customer effectively through fulfillment.
Right.
Now, taking those four things and you
put it so much more eloquently than I just attempted.
Come on.
Yeah, I can tell you've done this before. You've spoken about this before.
Tucker,
probably 5 times today.
If you do anything long enough, right, you make all the mistakes. You learn what to talk about.
I feel that, yeah.
Yeah, no, I've made plenty. So the key though is that with Amazon is they bring those things to you. They have the traffic you need, right? They have the infrastructure you need. They have the fulfillment capabilities you need, and the technology. And really, what you have to bring to the Amazon world is preparing your data and some skills to manage a program, right?
Okay.
To build a program. They cover a lot of the fundamentals. Now, as you get into Amazon and you start selling on Amazon, you start learning as an organization what you need, and you're going to learn what works for your own e-commerce site. So Amazon is faster, it's cheaper than launching your own e-com site. You don't need a platform. You don't need to spend money on Google and email and all this other marketing. You can do that later. And I think it's a great starting point for companies who are just getting into e-commerce. I'm talking about Amazon. That includes entry into the US market, by the way. Mm-hmm. So you're building that muscle and getting into e-com. Now, if you're already in e-com, you can leverage those assets for Amazon too. So it works both ways, right? So if you already have your own e-commerce site, but there are differences, right, in the scope of what you need to do in each instance for each channel.
Do people do both?
Oh, for sure. And frankly, I think they absolutely should. Every company can't, in my opinion, should not just be on Amazon. Now, there's all this, you may have heard, Tucker, about these stories of companies that are raising hundreds of millions of dollars to buy up Amazon third-party FBA sellers and aggregate them. There's a couple big companies here in the U.S. doing that. And I think those companies have some value in the near term, but they have to differentiate their channels. I think they've got to get into other channels, brick and mortar, other marketplaces, launch their own e-com. If you're 100% beholden to Amazon, I think that's risky.
Well, that's what I was thinking is like, I don't like being at the whims of, like, we started this stream 5 minutes later than I would have liked to. Why? Because I had to restart my computer. Why? Because Google pushed an update. I guarantee you. I mean, I'm projecting here. It's probably my own user error, but you know, every time Google makes a change to their algorithm, every time YouTube via Google via YouTube makes a change to their algorithm, people that depend upon YouTube, for example, for their monetized channels or whatever for their income, get screwed, right? Yep. And so we need to diversify, and we can't be at the whim of, you know, Amazon or Google or Apple or cloud hosting services, AWS, all of these. So, and that's why I ask, because like, to me, it seems like ideally you want control over your supply chain, you want control over your logistics and all of that, but there is no ideal, right? Because along with that comes the build out and the investment.
Yeah, I talked a long time ago. I worked for a fellow who was very successful, and he always told me, he said, this is early in my career, he said, you got to protect your flanks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is an e-com business. And what did he mean by that? He meant that you need to have multiple channels in order to make sure you have a diversified go-to-market. And in this B2B world, Tucker, too often I find that big traditional companies are 100% reliant on resellers, distributors, retailers, dealers for all of their revenue. And the world is changing around them. Their end user, and I have a whole chapter on this in the book, the user of the product, you know, the person who is using the tool, the industrial product or the hand tool or power tool in the field, has more buying choices than ever before. They have more ways to source the product, to see price, to get information, to get delivery. They can go to Amazon, they can go to competitors, there are new brands. The world has changed, and those companies that are 100% focused on their traditional channel, quite frankly, I think are at huge risk. You've got to have a diversified channel mix. Amazon being one piece of it, I argue strongly, particularly for manufacturers. They need to control their destiny in Amazon. And you know, again, for an international brand like we work with, Amazon provides a wonderful channel for them to grow into this market, and then follow that with your own e-commerce. And there's two channels for you. And we see this happening where even when companies establish themselves on Amazon, they then get picked up by brick and mortar stores or distributors or dealers because they see them there.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Like, how often does that serve as like a stepping stone to the next thing? Like, is it part of a process? Is it just the first step in an evolution? And Christopher, I see your question here. We'll get to that in a second. Sorry, you don't see that question.
I don't.
But you know what? Let's just jump to this because, well, first of all, Christopher's in Palma de Mallorca, not
cool. Nice.
Okay. In 2021, in your opinion, what are the most exciting niches, blue ocean, in B2B e-commerce?
Wow, that's a great question.
That is a great question.
You know, I think the beautiful part about B2B e-commerce is that it is not mature. So you have opportunities in almost every single category of e-commerce in the B2B markets. Now, you have to B2B when you think about you know, the different industries. There's everything from medical and dental to industrial products to safety products and office products and this and this. So, you know, some of the products are very complex, and some of them are you know, you really need to understand how to build, you know, the product in that category. You know, medical products being a good example. Some of the clients we work with sell regulated FDA type 2 medical devices that can only be used by doctors. I wouldn't call that a, you know, low hanging fruit. That said, if you're in that industry using e-commerce, you can actually gain competitive advantage over the other companies because a lot of them don't have it. So the key is really to find a product niche where you understand and can differentiate the product, you need to be a manufacturer. So the
So
beautiful part
what
of
does that mean when you say you need to be a manufacturer? Like specifically, give us some examples so that's clear.
Sure can. So what I mean by that is when you're going to market, the key for success, in my opinion, on Amazon and other marketplaces, and quite frankly, even in your own pure play e-commerce, is to have a product that's differentiated. And what I mean by that is you're not differentiating based on I have 3,000 products and
Right.
I'm a big seller of lots of different products and I'm selling this, that, and the other thing. That's very hard to differentiate on in these days in e-commerce. What I mean by being a manufacturer, Tucker, is that you make the product in some way, whether it may not be you making it, it may not be you actually physically building it,
Sure, sure.
but you're creating and designing a product. Perhaps you have it manufactured in Asia or something, or you manufacture it in some way, but that it's differentiated. And here's the key, Tucker. Here's the key for Amazon.
And we're not talking like Teespring differentiation, like T-shirts with your logo on
No,
it, right? Like
well,
we're
it could
talking.
be. It
Okay.
could be. It
Okay.
could be. It could be if you can differentiate on that. But I would say that's.
It's
I was
hard.
in the
It's a
I was in
flooded
the apparel
market.
business. That is a hard business.
That's not blue ocean,
No.
according to Christopher's question here. It's not a blue ocean.
Right. Right. Exactly. I would say that more identifying, a product that has some unique characteristics that, Amazon is a channel, and it's just that it's a channel and it's a search engine. But it's a channel that gives you a little bit of magic pixie dust. And what do I mean by that? 65% of buyers on Amazon will buy from companies and brands they don't know. Right? So what does that mean? They'll take a chance on you if you differentiate. That's also a competitive threat, by the way, to a lot of established brands.
Yeah, that's where my brain was going with that, right?
Yep.
Because along with that, well, I mean, I'm not going to state this as fact. I'm going to state it as a question. Do you see when people sell through Amazon that they get the benefit of some of the authority and trustworthiness and reputation that Amazon holds to them? Because I'm thinking, well, like when I'm buying on Amazon from someone that I've never bought before, in my mind as a consumer, and Lord, I buy a lot on Amazon, right? Like I'm here in Seattle, like I can order something right now and it'll be here in 2 hours. Like I'm totally privileged in that area. But when I buy something from Amazon from a new seller, someone I've never bought from before, in my mind, I'm buying from Amazon. I'm not buying from that seller. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. And that's where that stat comes from, Tucker, is,
Got it. Okay.
there's an experience that you have, some confidence level you have as a buyer that, that Amazon will take care of it if something happens to the order. One of my
Yeah.
most fun exercises, Tucker, is taking the CEO of a well-established, manufacturer of something and go a product and going onto Amazon and typing in, let's go look at your whatever, air tools or whatever. Just look at a general search. And then we look at the sellers, and I have tools that pull up how much revenue they're doing. And they're like, do you know who these guys are? CEO, been in the business for 50 years. No. Okay. Who makes this tool? I have no idea. And I show them, hey, this one's doing $5 million a year in sales, and it's confounding. And it's a little scary because for them, the competitive landscape is changing, and oftentimes they don't even know it. These sales are going to other people.
Yeah,
And they don't know it.
they don't know it. It's not intentional. See, I've engaged with companies that have made a very strategic, conscious decision not to sell on Amazon because they want control over everything, and that's fine. It works for them. It aligns with their corporate vision, their global strategy, and all of that stuff. But it seems to me like it's a huge missed opportunity because millennials, digital natives, Amazon natives grew up with the smartphone in our hands, right? The first thing, if I want to buy Bose speakers, you think I'm typing Bose.com? No, I'm typing Amazon. Right? I'm not even typing Amazon. I'm opening the app, and it's all right there. And I'll tell you what, if I go to Amazon and I search for Bose speakers, I prefer to buy from Bose because it lists the sellers. It's going to give me 20 different Bose
Sure.
speakers, and some of them are going to be from Bose, and some of them aren't. Some of them are going to be from other sellers.
Right.
And I will always pick the one directly from the manufacturer if I can.
Yep.
And it baffles me when manufacturers aren't selling on Amazon because they just lost my business.
Right. You're going to buy, you may either buy something else or buy from a reseller. Yeah. This is actually the reason we started the company, Tucker. I mean, you're getting to it, right?
Okay.
It's about control. For a lot of these manufacturers, they're waking up to the fact that Amazon is the Wild West, and that there's not, there's a drop in pricing there. There's pricing pressure there. There's poor content there. Look, Amazon is a search engine. You just said it yourself, Tucker.
Yeah.
You go to Amazon by default. 70% of product search starts on Amazon, not Google, not retail sites, not distributor sites. It starts on Amazon. And if you're not on Amazon, you're risking the relevance of your brand. If you are on Amazon, but you're letting your, nefarious resellers, people you don't know, sell your product, then oftentimes it's a lower price than you want. The content is poor. There's a lot of control issues with manufacturers. The confounding, not the confounding, but the contradictory or the non-intuitive way of thinking about this, right? Or to all this is, if I'm a manufacturer, if I go in and sell directly, I actually can control my presence on Amazon, and it creates less channel conflict with all my other channels. Manufacturers are always worried about channel conflict. It's counterintuitive. I'm going to take control by going in and selling. Well, wait a minute, doesn't that cause channel conflict? No, it actually reduces it, because you can control your price, your quality, what's sold there, inventory. You don't have to sell the whole line. These are things that a lot of manufacturers just don't know. They don't understand it. All they know is Amazon's a pain point. And anyway, that's why we started this thing, to help people.
Amazon is many things, but like having an excellent user experience with any of their products is not something that I would attribute to them. Sorry, Bezos, but that's how I feel. It's just it's hard, right? And I guess that's why folks like you exist. So that it's why folks like us exist, frankly, because Nimdzi, we serve that purpose for people in our industry, which is like, okay, this is super complicated. I don't have time. Yeah, I'll just hire a consultant, right? I'm a big believer in the consultant model on that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah. And by the way, Tucker, I agree with you on the user interface stuff. The fact of the matter, though, is people across the world have gotten used to it, and it's now the standard.
Yeah.
It's the standard. So whether or not you like it or not, it is what it is. It's the standard. And I would agree with you that there's some definitely pain points. Interestingly, when you get into B2B categories, it actually becomes more acute. There's certain types of products which are harder to shop for in Amazon, because it is somewhat constrained in the user interface. So,
and I, as an entitled millennial myself, born with a silver spoon in my mouth and an iPhone in my hand, like, I get indignant when I go to Amazon, and not even when, like, I can't find exactly what I'm looking for. I get indignant when I can find exactly what I'm looking for, but I procrastinated, and it's 2 days before my kid's birthday, and it's going to take 3 whole days to get. That's how spoiled the consumer is. And
it's really true.
Hey, if you're watching from outside the U.S., because I know there's folks out there outside the U.S. watching this, like, keep in mind, that is the American consumer, right? That is what you're dealing with when you're talking to us. We're spoiled brats. And you need to know you need to throw out whatever definition you have of customer service when going into the U.S. market, well, any market, because customer service is one of those things that just changes depending upon culture, right? I was just talking, was this in this conversation? We were talking about Japan and localization. No, it was right before. I was talking to Wendy Pease. She wrote another author. I love authors. I love having authors because you guys always have good stuff to say.
Well, we spend a lot of time writing, so you have to research and think about stuff for a long time.
I have I don't prepare a lot of questions, but one thing I did want to ask you is, what are some things, if someone who wants to enter a new market, it could be the U.S., could be other markets, but wants to dip their toe into e-commerce, what are some things that they should worry about? So clients come to you. What are some things that when they come to you, that's not even on their radar, but it should be, right?
Yeah. Well, oftentimes the part that they haven't thought about is really all about the actual logistics, in-country logistics, right? So You know, I'm sure, and I'm not necessarily an expert in in-country logistics, but I know that, you know, for example, we help companies take advantage of Amazon for their delivery, but there's also 3PLs and others that can help do that. But I find that's one thing. But even stepping back from that, Tucker, it's about, you know, the U.S. market, other markets sound great. You know, it sounds like a great, easy way to build your business. But doing a business case first to really make sure you understand that your product is going to move into this market, right? So, for example, we're working with a large food producer out of Ireland that, and the first thing we did with them when we engaged with them to help understand how they should move into the United States was we looked at we did an assessment, and we looked at the demand, and we looked at competitive landscape. We looked at what other products were already here. We looked at the customers that were available here, B2B and B2C, and how we could best target them. And so they really understood. A couple of things emerged from that in studying the market. One was that the packaging was wrong. They wanted to bring a couple products to market, and the packaging didn't speak to the American market. It had words, it had instructions, it had a number of other things that were not appropriate for this market.
Yeah, so now you are talking my language. This is what we do, like packaging, localization, product localization, stuff like that. Yeah, so that does not surprise me. And yes, it usually is like the afterthought. Localization, translation, it's like, oh yeah, we should probably. So we're used to it.
Yeah,
in this industry.
Well, that's great. So actually, you know, maybe we can do some work together. But yeah, we find that that localization piece is not there, and it's packaging, but it's also in the product content, the digital assets, you know, the imagery, even the videos that might be very successful in a different market, or the product description, ingredients. Some cases, I mean, I'm talking about this one example company. That all said, you know, when we go through this process and we understand those aspects, but also what the customer groups are, how to best price for this market, how to best fulfill, so the logistics and fulfillment side, these companies can do really well. I mean, the company I'm referring to has grown very substantially in a very short period of time by following all the best practices. And then, of course, they're starting on Amazon because the traffic is there. But their intention is to take those learnings and expand their EU website into a US-based site and grow the business here directly as well. And by the way, potentially using Amazon's fulfillment to fulfill orders from their e-com site. So Amazon makes that available now.
Oh, so they aren't tied? Like you can mix it, you can pick and choose, like you can use their fulfillment services without selling through their marketplace?
Yes, you can use Amazon's fulfillment services now to fulfill orders from other channels. Now, is it your cheapest option? Not always. It depends on, you know, your situation. But yeah, they have a program for it.
It makes sense because like Amazon Pay too. Like I just set up an Amazon e-commerce account because we created a store, a Shopify for Multilingual Magazine. So if you're watching, we have a store for Multilingual Magazine. You can buy hats and stuff. It's awesome.
Cool.
Anyways, that was my fifth shameless plug. But I get distracted with my plugs, and then I lose it. I lose it, Brian.
Well, the other thing that sometimes companies underestimate is the post launch investment. So when you're first launching on Amazon or in your own e-commerce here in the U.S. Or in any market for that matter, so there's some it's necessary to invest into marketing. And when we talk about Amazon,
do they help you with that? Like, do you have to still market your own products, or does Amazon like help you market your products?
Yeah, good question. So they're going to encourage you to spend money on their Amazon advertising platform. So help, you know, in quotes. To do it right, you really do need to. Amazon will give you guidance, but they're not going to do it for you. So you either hire a company like us, or you learn how to do it on your own. But it's paid search, it's paid pay-per-click marketing essentially, and Amazon is like a Google. It's a pay-per-click situation. So you look for the keywords that are going to drive volume to your listings, and you pay every time someone clicks. Good news on Amazon, Tucker, is that there's a very high conversion rate, meaning that people have a high intention to buy when they come to Amazon. So your advertising is actually pretty efficient in most cases. You can spend $1 to get $10 back in some cases. You can't do that on Google anymore.
No, because you go to Google when you want to find out more. You go to Amazon when you're ready to purchase,
That's
right?
right.
One
You got it.
click purchase, heck yes,
Yep.
show up on my doorstep.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly. Yep.
Uh,
Yep. The conversion rate on Amazon, Tucker, this is another eye-opening number for Prime members, is 74%. That means 74% of the time that a Prime member comes to Amazon, they buy. I've been in e-commerce 20 years. If I had a 2.5% conversion rate on my e-com site, consumer e-com site a few years ago, I would have been
that's sweet.
epic.
Yeah,
You know,
that's a good rate.
right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
crazy.
well, tell my CFO that. That's what gets into trouble. I have my company credit card tied to our Amazon account, and it's gotten me in trouble before. So
Right.
I feel that. So we talked about what do people not think of when they go in, and it's all of these local the translation, the packaging,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. What are things that people shouldn't worry about? So, like, what are the clients come to you and they think that X, Y, and Z are going to be super challenging? They think that A, B, C are going to be a bottleneck, but you're like, nah, dude, like, you don't even need to worry about that. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Well, one, if you're a manufacturer as well as an established seller of product, oftentimes companies are really concerned about this thing I mentioned earlier called channel conflict, which is all of
Yeah.
my other channels are going to stop buying from me if I sell on Amazon. Guess what? It doesn't happen. It's not true.
Okay.
It's just right.
There you go. So that's direct from the man himself. If you're out there and that's what's keeping you, that you're worried about channel conflict, and that's what's been keeping you from looking into this, that's what you needed to hear today. So,
well, I think too, Tucker. It's I don't want to necessarily tell people to ignore it. You have to pay attention to channel conflict.
well, but don't ignore it, but don't let it stop you, is what I'm
Exactly.
saying. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly right. Because you don't want to be ignorant the fact that you're selling products to these other channels. You got to do Amazon the right way. You should use what's called the seller central selling model and control your price. And if you do it that way, you're not going to cause price-based channel conflict. That can happen if you sell to Amazon in a wholesale manner, and that's called vendor central. I can go into those differences if you'd like, but the point is, if you approach Amazon in a controlled manner with your eyes open, you're going to be able to control the things that cause channel conflict, and it's not an issue. You shouldn't worry about it.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. What am I not asking you? What have I forgotten to ask you on this podcast here?
Well, I mean, it depends on what your folks want to know, Tucker. I mean, I could talk a lot about what does it take to build an Amazon program in terms of the fundamentals, the foundational items, and how that translates. I talked a little bit about how that translates into your own e-commerce. But what are the things that make a difference for companies that that are succeeding and those that are not succeeding on Amazon? What are the differences? Happy to talk a little bit about that if you'd like.
Let's talk about that. Like I said at the beginning, I'm approaching this from not a place of ignorance, but a place of curiosity. So
Right.
sometimes I don't even know which questions to ask. So please indulge.
Sure. Well, I'll give you a little bit on this. So, from a success standpoint, there's a number of things that go into succeeding on Amazon, and the first is as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is taking the right selling approach. Right. So, if you're a company sitting overseas or in the U.S. and you're looking to launch your Amazon program, if you make a product, there's two ways to sell: Vendor Central and Seller Central. Vendor Central, you're selling wholesale. Seller Central, you're setting up a presence on the marketplace and you're selling through the marketplace, right? So in that case, you control the price, the inventory, the content. I mentioned that. Those are things that gives you, that is the preferred way to sell for most manufacturers because it's more control, but it also gives you higher profit. It's usually 2 to 3 times higher profit.
What's the difference? Like, what's the delta there? When
Well,
we're talking,
the delta is mainly in Seller Central where you're selling yourself. You're getting the whole retail price.
oh,
You pay Amazon a commission, but you're getting the whole retail. When you're
what is that commission? Just are we talking like 2 or 3%, or are we talking like 15 to
no,
20%?
yes, it's anywhere from 8 to 15, in some cases 17, a little higher.
I got it.
But most categories, it's 15%.
Okay.
So, but keep in mind that's against your retail price. With the Vendor Central model, which is also called 1P, you're selling wholesale, so your price is lower. You're selling at a wholesale price, not the retail price.
Right. Yeah.
That's a huge difference in many categories. Some companies have 80% profit margin when they sell it, against their cost of goods when they sell in at retail, whereas they may only be getting, markedly lower against retail, 20-30%, if that, against retail.
Yeah, so if you're selling high value items, or high margin, I should say, high margin items, then it totally makes sense to go through Vendor Central.
Seller Central.
Seller Central.
Seller Central, yes. Yeah, I know it's confusing. Seller Central is also called 3P.
Right.
Vendor Central is 1P.
Yeah, I operate from the philosophy is like I do not need to know everything, but I need to know who to call. And you, sir, are now on my Rolodex.
Oh, thanks, Tucker. If you ever want to launch an Amazon program. So that's one piece. And then, if you think about, the other side, which is all about executing the program. So you decide on your selling strategy first, but then it's about content. We talked about content. There's an enormous difference in what's called the conversion rate, the number of people that buy when they hit your product listing, if you have good content. Your content is, your product title, description, great photos, using all the photos on Amazon. Videos are really important. Some of the most important things, though, are product reviews. You want to make sure you generate product reviews on your products. And Amazon provides you with some tools to generate those reviews, even when you're just starting on Amazon. There's something called the Amazon Vine program, which allows you to send products to reviewers, and those reviewers will review your product and post reviews. Yeah. So there's tools you can use. And the one other thing I want to mention, Tucker, if you're going to be selling on Amazon, you've got to use Amazon Prime. Your product has to be Prime eligible. They convert.
I don't look at products. I filter. Exactly. I filter them out.
Right. You got
as a last resort. If I cannot find a product that is Prime eligible, then I will consider not buying from Prime. But Prime to me is like the stamp of approval from Amazon. It's like, okay, this is going to go smoothly. Like I'm not going to, it's not going to show up broken. Which, by the way, what is the like Amazon recommended, like the Amazon preferred product? You know what I'm talking about? Well, of course.
Amazon's Choice.
Amazon Choice, yeah.
The little black bar that goes below the. So what Amazon does, you have to earn into that.
I was going to say, what are the steps? What's
you
the initiation ritual?
There's no initiation. This is something you have to earn. Your product has to earn. And what Amazon does is they look at a whole variety of factors before they label something Amazon's Choice. And it's based, Tucker, on the search term. So Amazon's Choice for something. And that for something tells you that Amazon thinks it's one of the best and most relevant things for that particular search. Okay. And it might be a brand name search. It might be a product search. But you have to earn into it. You earn into it with great product reviews, with great content, with high sell-through rates on that product on Amazon, things like that. The product typically needs to be Prime eligible. So there's a whole series of things. But yeah, that badge is a magic badge. We have clients that have that badge on their products, and the conversion rates on those products are through the roof. So sure. It's a real advantage when you can earn it. So. Yeah, and so it's a whole ecosystem, Tucker. These things all work together.
It's a content, whole world,
advertising, Prime, all of it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that badge. I'm encouraged to learn that it's not something that you just pay for.
No.
Okay.
Right.
Because I've always questioned. Like, is this like? Of course, it's generated by an algorithm. I doubt there's some guy with like VP of Amazon Choice, like selecting the best tube socks for everybody.
Who knows?
But you already touched on this, and I did want to talk to you about. I have a note here that I wrote down while you're talking about user-generated content and reviews and stuff like that. What are the best practices around that? You say Amazon likes reviews. Well, I'm assuming good reviews, right?
Well, they like, yeah.
How do you? And I was just talking to Wendy this with the book. It was available on Amazon, and she was mentioning to me. She said, "Go provide a comment, Tucker." I said, "Well, I haven't read it yet, but okay." And so I'm going to go comment on this. And she says, after 60 comments, Amazon picks you up. Is that the magic number?
Well, I think it varies by category. Books, actually, that's interesting. She said that because I've got about I don't know 40 reviews on my book, something like that. So maybe
Twenty
maybe
more. I'll
maybe I
go
need
give you
60.
one.
Thank you.
I
I
am the
appreciate
book whore today. I will just comment on anybody's. It's fine. No
it.
problem.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, the way we understand reviews and the way we work them, there's not necessarily a magic number, but there's the content itself is extremely important. And by the way, it's not just about great reviews. It's about a mixture of reviews. And what happens, and this has been going on in e-commerce for 20 years. This is not just Amazon. Product reviews, people identify, they look for product reviews, number one. So voice of customer, right? It's critical for converting on any e-commerce site. You as a buyer, whether you're B2B or B2C, you're looking through those reviews and you're looking for people you identify with, or the use case or the application that you identify with. And sometimes there'll be negative reviews. And it's interesting, that actually helps there's been studies done on this, Tucker, that helps the validity of the buyer to feel more confident that, number one, these are real.
Right.
And then, by the way, this I don't identify with that customer who wrote a negative review. They were using it for this thing, which is no, I'm not going to use it for that. This person sounds like a complainer anyway. So
I go straight to the 2 and 3 star reviews. If I
yep,
want to know about a product, because the 5-star reviews, yeah, they're happy. It works as expected, right?
yep,
So I want to see how many negative, first of all, ratio of 5 stars to everything else.
yep.
But then I want to see the 2 and 3 stars, especially like the 3 stars, because 1 stars, they got a bone to pick.
Right.
They're mad. I don't care what they have to say. But the 2 stars, in my experience, are the ones that are like legit trying to provide constructive feedback. And
Yep.
I look for two things. I look for, what that feedback is, what needs improvement, so I can decide whether or not that's important to me. And then I look to see how the seller responded to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that says a lot about a brand. I think it says a lot about a company. And it provides reassurance to me as a consumer, as a purchaser of the product, that if I have a similar product, I will get a similar response.
That's absolutely right. And that's the way it works on Amazon and off Amazon. It's a very common behavior from what I've seen and the experiences I've had with reviews. There was a notion years ago that, wow, we don't want reviews as a seller, e-com seller. I don't want any reviews on my product, but you actually do. Because assuming they're legitimate, they're going to tell you things about your product and they're going to help you improve your product. So it's a good, they are good things. Again, if they're not fraudulent, good things. Right. So,
Well, and that data, that consumer information, because that's what it is, consumer data, right? It's
right.
data about your target audience, your target buyers. And we've talked already about how the consumer has unprecedented choice nowadays via channels and where they want to buy their products and how much they want to pay for their products. There's all this new competition. However, on the flip side, so that's the bad news for B2C sellers and B2B buyers too, because B2B buyers have more options as well. But the flip side is sellers have access to way more useful
Yeah.
data on their audiences than ever before, and I think to the point where most companies don't even know what to do with that, because the ones that do know what to do with it, guess what? They're Amazon now.
Yeah.
Right? You know what? They're the big guys.
Yep.
So how do
Yep.
you what type of insights, analytics, and data, specifically on your customers, do you get access to?
Yeah, you know what, you just hit on a really important point, Tucker. In the B2B market, where I see companies, manufacturers, for example, doing a good job of understanding how the customer um, needs, getting customer feedback into a process is actually with the product development itself, right? So for years, manufacturers have gone to customers and users and asked them how can I improve the product. What they haven't done, though, is apply the same rigor to their sales channels, to their process, to their digital side of things. So, it's here. I'll give you a case study
So
out of my
what
book.
you're talking about is user-centric design, user experience design, design thinking, and how it's over the years and the decades gone from something exclusively for product teams, that phase of the product journey, and it's kind of expanded out. Like I've seen that too, where you see this design thinking mentality approach, not just in the design teams, but in all of the support teams and all of, the sales, the marketing, and everything. And the key principles of that design, whatever you want to call it, it goes by different names, are think fast, move fast, prototype, iterate, minimal viable product, always be collecting data, always be testing, A/B testing, all of that stuff. And I don't know, I interrupted you.
No, that's exactly right. You got that's the point. And I think it's interesting. I think on the consumer side, companies have advanced that to other parts of the business, but in the B2B side of things, that a lot of the B2B businesses are very conservative. They want 100% of the information before they make any decisions. They're not able to iterate and test quickly. Yeah. They're not able to test and learn. And this is what Amazon does better than anyone, right? Test and learn and reinvent. That's not a B2B, outside of product. That's not a B2B approach. And they're suffering because of it in many cases. And you see it manifest in the fact that there's so few e-com sites. When companies do apply that rigor, and I was going to mention a case study out of my book, Tucker.
Yes.
There's this biotechnology company. It's a big company, $2-3 billion company. They're called Illumina. They make DNA sequencing equipment. You talk about interesting. And so Illumina, look them up. Illumina is they make the equipment that sequences the human genome. It's used in experiments where they go and they deconstruct what you're made of, essentially. And it's used in medical research. It's used to find new drugs. In fact, their technologies were used to help with the COVID vaccines and COVID tests and things like that. So this company, you think about a company that has an unlikely case for e-commerce, right? This is by the way, it's Illumina.
That wouldn't be the first type of company I would think of.
No, right? It's like books and music. This is not books and music. This is $1 million equipment, right? And it's chemicals that go into this equipment. E-commerce, what the heck? How does that fit into this equation? So they went and they said, okay, well, I mean, smartest company in the planet. They've been called the smartest company in the world because of the people there, right? So very bright company. Anyway, they went and they applied the same rigor to their sales channels that they have for their own product development. They said, we want to understand where the customer wants to buy, how to make it easy for them, get in front of them, change the ways we're thinking about their customer journey, how we're marketing to them, how we're speaking to them. Guess what? So they did all this work where they spoke to the customer. They took an Amazon approach. At the end of the day, they launched e-commerce. We're going back 5 years. They're a $3.5 billion company. This year, they're going to do half of their revenue through e-commerce. Billions. And guess what? They're selling $1 million pieces of equipment every day through their e-commerce website. What?
That's
insane.
Books, music, and t-shirt.
No.
But this, sir, is why I wanted to talk to you, because it's like I haven't heard of that. Just like how most people haven't heard about what I do, which is localization. It's like I spend the first 5 minutes of any conversation trying to explain what I do. It's like that's how I felt, except on the other side about e-commerce. And I want to thank you for coming on and chatting with me today.
Of course,
we're running out of time, so I'm gonna play us out here. But any closing thoughts before we take off for the day?
Well,
or anything that we forgot to mention? Did I cut? We got the book. We got Enceiba. We got.
Yes. I have one other thing I'll mention real quick, Tucker, if you don't mind. I have a thought leadership series, which you might be interested in, and some of your listeners might be interested in. Yeah. So it's a debate style series. We call them unwebinars because that's what they are. They're not webinars. These are debates, and we bring on the practitioners from some big and mid-sized companies to argue. Basically, it's like a talk show. Argue about.
I am so down with this concept.
You have to see this, Tucker. You have to see this. It's called masterb2b.com. 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 You go to the website, you'll see, and you can participate in the debates. It's a boxing style format. We have 3 rounds. The audience votes on who wins the debate. That's it. It's really fun. Andy Hoare is my partner. He's the former head of B2B e-commerce at Forrester Research. And we're talking about issues like, will Amazon business be the death of all distributors? Is artificial intelligence going to take over humans? These are big topics. Is the marketplace model viable for B2B e-commerce? So all different kinds of topics that are important for e-com and how people bring this to market. So encourage you to take a look. It's free of charge for people to register. So I'd encourage you to take a look. Our next one is on marketplaces. Interestingly enough, it's next coming up just in end of June here. So June 22nd.
All right, there it is. The unwebinar for, what is it? Master the World of B2B E-commerce. Master B2B unwebinar. Right. I am no joke. I'm super interested in this. I love debates. And fun. I think there needs to be more healthy debate in this world. I think we are too polite as a society, and I think it wastes time. Yeah. But that is just me. Having talked to you for 50 minutes now, I'm assuming that you are of like mind. Sir.
Well, thank you, Tucker. I appreciate it. And, people can reach me at Brian at Enceiba.com. So shoot me a note, Brian at Enceiba.com, if you want to talk about Amazon or anything else that's related to B2B e-commerce. And appreciate the opportunity, Tucker.
All right. Thank you, sir. And for those listeners out there, viewers out there, thank you for bearing with us. If you made it through all of the sessions, you get something. You get a medal. We'll get you something. We'll get you a gift certificate to Multilingual Mercantile so you can get some merch or something, because this has been a long day. But it has been a very, very, very fruitful day, starting with talking about how to hire salespeople around the world with CEO of Nimdzi Insights, Joseph Kubowski, moving on to talk to Mercedes Montero about inclusive Spanish and how to make sure that you are translating inclusively. And lastly, with Brian, I forgot about Wendy. We talked to Wendy Peace about her book, and Brian last here. So with that, we will both wish you a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Cheers.